On this episode of the Youth Ministry Sherpa's Coast to Coast podcast, we're still brockless, but Shannon and me got together to talk about how to handle when students are more spiritually mature than their parents. How do we encourage them without undermining mom and dad? We also talk about what to do when one of our core kids disappears from our ministry. How do we respond and how are we supposed to feel? Plus, what movie should every parent watch with their kid? And Shannon schools Steve on Will Ferrell's favorite cheer. It's episode 13, so roll down the windows and let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 13 of the Youth Ministry Sherpa's Coast to Coast. My name is Steve Anderson and I'm joined by my good friend Shannon Dunn. Hi Shannon.
Hey Steve. How are you feeling
Happy
today?
Monday. Happy Monday. I'm good.
Monday.
I'm good. Yeah. Long day yesterday. Sundays are long. We have youth group on Sundays.
Yep.
Yeah. And when there's football on and, lots of conversation around that when everybody's coming in the doors, it gets a little hectic, but it's all good. Yeah.
I was like a little bit hopeful that people would leave church early because there was a game that started at noon, and I'm like, all right, let's go, everybody. Let's leave. Not the service early, but they linger for a long time and talk after the service. And I just thought things would wrap up earlier, but people lingered forever yesterday, which, it's great. They're having a good time. But I was like, we got football to watch.
Isn't hospitality one of your responsibilities? Don't you want people to stay?
That's what I'm saying. I wanted to be able to clean up a little early and go watch football.
Okay. But, did you watch the games?
I watched the Kansas City game, and then I was at a meeting during the second game, and I was sneakily checking the score on my phone.
Okay.
So, we have some big Kansas City fans. I'm a Kansas City fan. I won't call myself a big fan, but I jumped on the bandwagon a few years ago. And our pastor's a diehard 49ers fan. So we're excited for the Super Bowl over here. Wait, is this episode going to play after?
It's actually going to play after the game. Yeah, that's all right.
So all right. You'll all know what happened.
I'm just laughing because you said you watched the Chiefs game. Around here, it was known as the Ravens game.
Right.
A lot of tears in our area yesterday. A lot of tears, probably a few smashed TV sets, some frustration, but,
Oh, man.
What are you going to do? When you got Taylor Swift on your side, things just feel inevitable. This is Taylor's year. Everything's going her way.
Taylor's year. It is.
So,
I have some thoughts. Justin Timberlake announced a new world tour, and I think he's like trying to compete. He's like, she's getting too much spotlight. So we'll see what happens. I don't think he's going to take the spotlight back, but
probably not. That's all right. So this episode is going to come out just a couple days before Valentine's Day. Actually, the day before Valentine's Day. And this will be after your big events at your church. You have the mother-son dance, father-daughter dance. Yep. I love that.
Yep.
What are you doing? What are you doing personally for Valentine's Day? Did your husband set that up yet? Is that a high expectation for you, Shannon?
No, we don't really do anything for Valentine's Day, I feel like. I will say this. Our first date ever was on Valentine's Day, except that I told him it was absolutely not a date and that we could hang out despite the fact that it was Valentine's Day if we got a group of people. It was the only day of the week I was available. And then I literally called him back. I was like, wait, it's Valentine's Day. We can't hang out. I don't want you to think this is a date. But we're married now, so I can say, okay, fine, it was a date.
Yeah. Well, then you make up for it, be treated extra special or something, since he didn't do anything great that first day. Yeah. My wife has requested, she requested dinner out at the fanciest restaurant in town. So we do have a gift card, but it's one of those places where the gift card doesn't really cover the cost of the meal.
Right.
It's more like a contribution to your dinner. So we'll make it work.
Can you get reservations for Valentine's Day? Do you already have them?
Good question. Probably probably need to get on that. Yeah, it may have to be the day before, the day after, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure
all
it
right.
out. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So let's get into today's show. We forgot to mention we are part of the Download Youth Ministry Podcast Network, and we want to thank them for helping support our show and spreading the word about us. We are also Brockless today. See, this is the third straight episode that we've been Brockless, and now we're not even talking about Brock anymore.
I forgot.
As if he doesn't exist. But Brock will be back with us, we think, for the next episode. So he's coming back from sabbatical. There was a Brock sighting, and hopefully he'll be back with us for the next one. So
we'll never forget about you, Brock.
We love you, Brock. Let's do segment 1, Shannon. This question was posted to me by a friend of mine, and I think it's a really fascinating question. We're calling this segment The Passing Lane. So there are times when we have students in our student ministry who begin to mature and grow in their spiritual life at a rate that far exceeds that of their parents. And we see those students really begin to, pursue God. And sometimes it brings them into conflict with their parents, or brings us into conflict with the family in certain ways. And it can be a very difficult situation. At the same time, we're trying to inspire students to walk with Jesus. So, Shannon, in your experience, have you seen that happen? And, tell us a little bit about what that was like, and maybe how you responded in that circumstance.
Well, two sort of scenarios came to my mind when you posed this question. One is that we often get students whose parents don't go to church at all. Right. So their faith is surpassing them quickly because their parents don't have a faith, at all. And ultimately that scenario excites me, because I'm like, I want to be reaching out and reaching kids who don't have anyone else pouring into their lives, teaching them about Jesus. Like, these are kids that are hearing about Jesus for the first time. That's super exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in those scenarios, you're all they have, and often their parents aren't support. I haven't run into a lot of parents who are anti them coming to church things, but they don't necessarily prioritize them or want to give them rides or things like that. Yeah. So then in that scenario, you have to encourage those students to prioritize it themselves and things like that. But I always think that's great. And the seeds those students, I think, are planting with their families is invaluable, right? So that's such a beautiful picture of what youth ministry can do. Another scenario that came to my mind on this question would be, I don't know that I've had a ton of experience where I could say, I know the parents' faith well, and so I know that this kid's faith is surpassing their parents. But what I have seen is where a kid's faith, I've seen it in that a parent's behavior doesn't match where I think they believe their faith is.
Yes.
So they are not putting their faith into practice through the way that they act in the community or on social media or in other things. And so they may attend church, they may value church in their students' lives, and they do all these things, and then yet their behaviors, the way they're acting, things like that, to me don't demonstrate a real mature faith. And that's where I go, okay, I know this student's faith is actually growing deeper than their parents, because they are trying to live a different life because of knowing Jesus.
Yeah.
That is tough, because your parents are an example of a way to live your life. And so those students, let's just say they drinking, for example. I've seen plenty of parents who are major partiers, enjoying parties where they're getting drunk, inviting their friends to do that. And then you have students who are trying to act and live differently. And that's hard when it's right in their face.
Yeah, definitely. Thinking about church people, I think it's easy for parents. I know there's been seasons of this in my own life where you just want the safety of faith without any of the risk or the demands of faith. And so there's a lot of us, as parents, we want our kids to know Jesus, but we don't really want them all in for Jesus because of what that might demand of them. And I think that puts parents in a tough situation because they know that they should, but they don't, you know?
Yeah.
I had a student one time who wanted to be baptized, and her family, they were a church going family, but they weren't from our church. And she started coming to our youth ministry. So we baptized her. And in that ceremony, she just talked a little bit about her faith and how it was kind of different from her parents. And afterwards, they were very offended. And I never saw that girl again.
Wow.
She was super excited, getting plugged in, wanted to be baptized, and then they yanked her completely out of the youth group and basically told her that we were a cult, that I was a cult leader, which is funny. And we don't want you to live that kind of faith or have that kind of faith. And so that's really, really hard because you just feel like, I don't know, you feel like you're doing God's work, and at the same time, you're being kind of castigated for it. So,
right.
I don't know. It's tough.
And I think that the question your friend posed is really challenging. And I don't think there's a one answer, I don't even know if there's a full answer. It's like, I think our jobs are to continue to do everything we can to walk beside a student, to disciple them, to share faith with them, to let us be an example of lives that are lived out faithfully, and just continue to build that relationship and stand next to them and support them. And I pray that, those seeds that we are planting, and even for that student who you baptized, now she's in God's hands. And I just pray that
that's right. Yeah.
The good work that we started, not we, God started through us, continues in their lives, even when they're not, having that at home.
And even the conversations that we have in those times, I'm always seasoning that conversation with gentleness. I don't want the kids going home being self-righteous jerks or, judging their parents. We want them to be humble and gentle and, be praying for their parents to understand what they're about. And so we give that message, but I'm not sure it always lands in the parent's house because of what the kid wants to do. For example, we have a mission trip that we do to Greece. And there was an example where I really wanted the student to go on this trip. And, it didn't get past the parents for various reasons. And there was nothing that I could really do to change that circumstance. And I felt like it kind of, it took that experience from that kid, an experience that would have been really good for them to take a risk, to be, out of their comfort zone, to see another part of the world. And we weren't able to make that happen. But you're right. I just have to trust that that's not up to me. That's up to God. And I can't overrule the parent, or I'm not the parent. I don't know the whole situation. I just hope for the best. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
In this way, there's something about youth ministry that's almost subversive, or it can feel subversive to a family. Like I think about like the mission of Young Life, right, is to reach unchurched kids. And so, they're reaching kids who have no connection to the church. And then they want to take them to camp. They want them to accept Jesus and become Christian without really the context of family in the ministry or, a church structure or anything like that. And I just wonder if at times for families that feels like, who are these people and what are they doing to my kid kind of thing, that we would feel the same if it was some other, I don't know, some weird cult, if somebody was recruiting your kid to sell Amway, right? Wouldn't you be like, oh no, you're not doing that?
Yes, 100%. And I think about that all the time. I'm like, why should you trust me or us?
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
And I do think actually that that's a big part of the church's job, as a church, as a whole church, is to then build
Yeah.
trust in your community. And that's,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
not to like change subjects at all, but just that's why I throw the father-daughter dance for the whole city of Malibu, is because I hope that they have then had an experience that gives them some trust in our church. That when maybe their kid gets to high school and says, "Can I go to youth group at that church?" They're like, "Oh, I remember that really fun, safe, lovely event." And so, yeah, I trust that those people in that place, in that church. But yeah, I think our job is weird, and that, parents should be like, who are these weird adults that want to hang out with my teenager? That should probably be a red flag, honestly. Like,
Yes.
to an
Exactly.
unchurched person. So it's
Exactly.
weird.
We have a bunch of new kids this year, and we have a retreat coming up for the high school. And I really want so many of these students to come. I feel like it's our chance to really get to know them. But their parents don't know me at all. And I've sent emails to the families, but we've never met. The kids come on their own with each other. And so in most cases, they have no idea who I am. And I'm asking them to pay, although we're willing to pay for them, but I'm asking them to pay to send their kid away for a weekend with a bunch of people that their only contact with us is, a couple hours every Sunday night. So maybe part of the takeaway is just that we have in our heads at least an understanding as parents what parents might be thinking. I've parented teenagers, so I understand a little bit about what it feels like to have other people involved in your kids' lives and not really know what's happening. I think it's easy for youth pastors, youth workers to kind of forget the context that their kids are coming from and to think that we're all that matters to those students, and that's just not true. So we have to make some attempt maybe to try to empathize with the parents, and then if there's any way to build a bridge and have some kind of relationship, build a trust. I love what you said, about having a great reputation in the community. I think that's super important. Staying in one place helps, I think.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've spent years in your community that those parents may not know you, but they might know a parent that knows you because their kid has gone through the program and you've built a reputation. And I think that's a big deal.
Sure.
In a church and in a community and amongst parents and things like that. So
sure. I think of the words of Jesus. He said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his mother, father, wife, and children, brothers and sisters, even his own life, such a person is not worthy to be my disciple. To be someone outside the church and hearing that message about your kid, that's got to be scary. That's got to be scary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a big part of our job, even for those parents who may not be leading the best example for our kids and everything, is to be a parent supporter. So in what ways can we, when a kid comes and complains about their parents or things like that, in what ways can we help that relationship be better and not knock the parent and not assume that parent's doing everything wrong because the teenager said that parent's doing everything wrong. So I find that a big part of my job is listening, filtering, and then finding a way to sort of guide them back to like the good of their parents and making sure parents know that, we don't ever want to be caught saying something negative about a parent. That'll completely lose all trust. So yeah.
So we probably shouldn't teach that verse at youth group. It's probably not a good choice for our next series. Why you should hate your family, I
mean,
you're right. We have a subversive message, but we should not be the subversives.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, it's time for our Get to Know You Sherpa question. Are you ready for this one, Shannon? I thought this was a fun one.
Okay, lay it on
me. All right.
Me.
What non-Christian movie would you love for all of your parents to watch with their teenagers? Maybe it has a message or something about it struck you that you thought, oh, this would be so good for parents to watch with their kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just because it's fresh in my mind, immediately comes to mind. Don't laugh.
I'm already laughing.
If you listen to previous episodes, you know I have a mild obsession with the Barbie movie. Okay, but for real,
Okay.
I think there is such a strong message of some identity formation and autonomy and things that are going on, the struggles in that movie. And America Ferrera, I'm going to butcher that name, but her monologue, I think it speaks about women, but I think, or girls in general. So I think teenage girls, and I think it's so real and deep but can transfer and go bigger to like the expectations that I think we put on the contradictory expectations we put on teenagers, you know, of be this, but be this. And at least they feel that way. Even if parents or people aren't putting it on them, they're feeling this pull to be one way with friends, but to be this way with parents and to be this way at church and to this way at school. And the world is giving them such mixed messages. So I don't know, that's what stands out to me. I think that movie might have a lot of silly and might have gotten a lot of weird attention to it, but there's some good nuggets in there.
Okay, we'll go with that.
All right,
I'm going old school. Yeah, I'm going old school. Two movies come to mind. They're two of my favorites. One is very famous. The other is much lesser known. The first one is Dead Poets Society. Kind of this, almost a similar theme in a sense of parental expectations. If you remember the plot, there's this young man and he's very gifted in theater and that's what he wants to do. But his father is all about him being an engineer and being a respected, money earning, you know, following in his father's footsteps. And of course that leads to this terrible tragedy in the movie of that young man taking his own life. Spoiler alert, it's made like 30 years ago. So if you haven't seen it by now, but I just love the conversation that can engender with parents and kids about, you know, it's so easy for us to kind of want our kids to like the things that we like or do the things that we wanted to do. And just to remember that our kids are their own unique beings, that God made them, and they may have interests and loves that we don't understand, but we want them to lean into those things as God made them. So I don't know. That's a tearjerker. It got to me at the time. I still watch it every now and then and just think about, you know, my role as a parent in the life of my kids and how I want to inspire them and not in any way keep them down from their dreams. The other one is, this is kind of born out of being the father of high school athletes and not always being proud of how I handled some of those situations, you know, being the dad who'd get worked up at games, or I'm not saying I was that, but I was that. And, you know, we all know those sports dads, right, who are yelling at their kid from the sideline. And
I've seen some sports moms like that too.
Yeah. But there's this little movie called Searching for Bobby Fischer. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's about this child chess prodigy and how his dad kind of takes this gift that his son has and all the pressures that come with that, and he kind of guides his son into that world to challenge him but not overwhelm him and let him be suffocated. Because chess is like chess at the highest levels, it's all consuming, and it can destroy people. And Bobby Fischer, I think his real life story kind of went crazy at the end, became a recluse and very difficult to be around. And so this is a fictional account of a young man with similar gifts who's pursuing this dream of chess. He's just a kid, and his dad has to figure out how to challenge and support him without putting the pressure on him as a parent. Beautiful movie. So find it if you can. I don't know where it is, but it's probably 30 years old too.
You can't say Bobby Fischer without thinking of Will Ferrell in The Perfect Cheer. You know that SNL sketch of The Perfect Cheer? Oh my gosh.
I did not know the reference. I did not know the reference.
There's like a part of the cheer and they're like, Bobby Fischer, where is he? I don't know. Bobby Fischer. It's like a literal line. Okay. Anyways.
Okay.
All right.
Wow.
That's all I got.
Well, I would recommend the movie over the SNL skit. I would say that.
All right. Whatever you like.
All right. We're moving into our final segment of the day. We're calling this one Disappearing Act. This is a heavy hitter, Shannon. What do you do when your shining star of youth group, the kid that you love, the kid that's been at everything since 6th grade, gets to junior year and disappears? They ghost you. They stop coming. They don't respond to your texts. You don't get an answer as to why. They just disappear. Has that happened to you?
I don't know, Steve. Maybe it's a you problem. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's definitely that, but I can't be alone.
I'm just kidding. I mean, no matter what, even if you're not fully ghosted and they don't fully disappear, there's often those kids have a major decline in their junior and senior year for so many reasons. I think the hardest reason that they have said to me is like, they feel like they've outgrown, what's going on in the ministry. So I have had the experience where those students maybe are not, I haven't been ghosted that I can recall, Steve, but they stopped coming to youth group. They stopped coming to events. It's no longer their favorite thing. And for years and years, it was their favorite thing and they were all in. And so now they're no longer all in and sold out for the programs maybe that we're doing. And that's really, really hard. That's like, you're like, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing what I thought you loved or things like that. But usually what I've done is just tried my best to keep a relationship with those students through a text message or I like to go to like sporting events. So maybe I'm still showing up to a sporting event of theirs and there's definitely a gap and a loss and your relationship is not the same. And it's not as deep and as, they're not hearing the gospel any longer from your youth group, but I try my best to keep an open door for them to still know that even if they don't want to attend my events and my ministry, that they're not, that doesn't mean I stop loving them or caring about them or having a relationship with them. And I have seen a few of those students then, which I like is like, sometimes that builds a better sort of one-on-one relationship. Whereas then in college, you can still sort of keep that door open. And some of those students are the students that, I still would check in with after they've grown, honestly. So that's cool. That's hopeful that even if they disappear, they may, kind of come back around in college and you can still sort of keep tabs on them.
Do you feel like there's like different categories of what happens? Like you mentioned the one who says they feel like they've outgrown the youth group a little bit. They've been to summer camp 6 times. They don't want to go a 7th time or whatever.
They're crazy.
There's that. I know. There's that category. And then there's like a kind of like a spiritual rejection category, maybe. Like, I don't believe this anymore for whatever reason, influence from someone or somewhere. And then there's times where I don't even know. There was a kid who was on our student leadership team 2 years ago. She had been in our church for about a year and she got really involved and she was great. We really liked her and she joined student leadership, was even more involved. That whole year went to our spring retreat. And that was literally the last time we ever saw her. And we don't know why. She didn't give us a reason. She didn't really respond to attempts to reach out to her. I mean, part of me thinks, well, did something terrible happen that I need to know about? Or was it a relationship with another kid that had a falling out? But we don't know because she never told us. Yeah. And so I don't know.
And was there any relationship with the parents?
Very little. They were still pretty new to the church too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so hard and can be so discouraging and
Yeah.
frustrating, and I think we have to give ourselves a lot of grace to, as long as we have left doors open, reached out, done it. Like, the worst case scenario was like a kid never showed up again and you never reached out and you just ignored it and you were like, whatever, doesn't matter to me. That's just, obviously that's
Yeah.
not the attitude. But if you've opened all the doors, done all the things that you can do, I think that,
So what's appropriate? What's appropriate as a
mm,
follow-up or as a next step? How far do you take it before you're just like,
mm,
okay, I release you, you know? Because you don't want to be annoying or
yeah,
possessive either. That's
yeah,
weird. So,
that's true. I mean, I'm wavering in this answer, but like, I think probably just showing up their house is too far. Like,
yeah,
I don't,
yeah,
unless there's some different relationship, right? There's certain students that would actually be appropriate. You have that relationship with the family wants you to, there's some
right.
scenarios. But in the scenario you're describing, I think you're not going to show up on their doorstep and be like,
No.
what are you doing? But I do think that there's
Surprise!
surprise. Tell me now why you don't want to be around me.
Yeah.
What red flags did I give you?
It's like a desperate boyfriend showing up at the
Yeah.
girl's house. Yeah.
Totally.
You don't want to do
Totally. No, but I think, it's figuring out which leaders the student had the closest relationship
that.
with and making sure they're sending a text message. I used to often send
Yeah.
postcards, honestly, and I
Yeah.
still occasionally send postcards. And just side
Yeah,
note,
I do too.
I say postcards and not letters. This is just a basic youth ministry safety thing, because you don't want to write something in secret that your parents could be like, why'd you send my kid a sealed envelope with words I don't know? Anyway, that's my own philosophy. I send
I
a
never
postcard.
thought of that. That's fascinating. We just have little note cards, but they go in envelopes. So,
I mean, I don't think
oh,
that's really going to
good.
trigger
That's good.
anything, but that's my own
Yeah.
philosophy, is like, a postcard, super safe. No one's
Okay.
going to question you wrote something sketchy
Good tip.
in there.
Good tip.
But yeah, so I think it's maybe all forms of communication, email, text message, but spread out. You're not like, day
Yeah.
one, like, here's 80 text messages, I think. But I think once you've done that and maybe circled back to it, 6 months later, even, I think that's appropriate to come back to someone, give them a season away, and then circle back. And my hope is that I run into those students at school, at an event. Like, I hope for that. Like, I pray, like, I hope when I go to this game, I see so-and-so and I can say hello, because then it's like not creepy, like showing up on their doorstep. You're going to a basketball game to see someone else and they're there. And then you get to say, like, I still care about you and I'm not mad that you're not coming. I think that's a big thing too. You don't want them to think you're mad that they're not coming. So.
Yeah. Guilt is a terrible motivator. So at the same time, I think this is something I've had to work on really my entire career, is the emotional separation of that. To not let it be like a personal discouragement. You used that word earlier. It's so easy to be discouraged by that, because the thing that you've invested in and created, they've deemed no longer valuable to them.
Right.
And when you have a good relationship with a kid over time, that feels like a slap in the face. But we all, the emotional response, I guess I'm kind of answering my own question as I talk through it, is first to realize that they're teenagers. And so they're going to do teenage things and make teenage decisions. And my role is not to micromanage those decisions. My role is to have an atmosphere and an attitude that's open and welcoming for whatever you want to bring to the table, whether it's being here all the time, sometimes, or maybe even rarely or never, and still knowing that I'm here for you if needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Protecting the emotional discouragement by realizing that it's not up to us, I think is kind of the desired outcome for me. Easier said than done.
It comes back again to trusting the seeds you've planted, right? Trusting in God that He's going to continue that work in that student. And that it's funny you say that, because there was a part of me when you first asked the question where I was like, you got to let them go. Like, but that's like sometimes I can get this very unemotional response, but there is a part of
Yeah.
you as a youth worker that has to be able to like eventually move towards not taking it personally. And how, however that looks for you is like, don't let it discourage you in your ministry, too much.
Yeah. It's tough, but yeah, I think the other thing that I come back to sometimes is just thinking that a lot of people didn't accept Jesus either. So he was doing it really well, and his success rate wasn't all that much higher. And so if people were, no, I'm not. I'm just saying the parable of the soils is descriptive. It's the reality of how people respond to the message of the gospel. And so some will jump in and you think, oh, this is great, they've gotten it. And then 6 months later, they're gone. And that's exactly what Jesus said would happen. And it happened to him. So it's going to happen to us too. But man, it's tough.
Steve, I feel like that is a good plug for your upcoming interview, Faith Beyond Youth Group, right? We're going to interview Brad Griffin and about their new book. And I think that's the conversation, is like, where does their faith lie when youth group's not?
Yeah,
they're out
that's absolutely right.
So that'll be good.
Yeah, we're recording that interview here shortly with Brad Griffin from Fuller Youth Institute. And I think it's going to be a great conversation, maybe a great follow-up to this discussion of what is it that really defines a student's faith. Is it coming to youth group, participation in our stuff, or is there something much, much bigger beyond that we can kind of take our emotions out of it and just be inspiring kids to follow Jesus regardless of what it looks like to us. So yeah, that's good. Definitely. That'll be good. Well, this has been fun, Shannon, doing this without Brock. It's been fun. Should we let him back in? Does he need like a secret password, or should he bring us gifts? Or, I mean,
gifts.
He's got to pay some kind of penance, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it better be good.
He just got back from London, so he can at least bring us presents, I think. But
I agree.
Anyway,
some
biscuits, maybe some nice tea.
Ooh, I like that.
Anyway, please reach out to us at youthministrysherpas@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you if there's topics that you'd love for us to discuss, or just to encourage us so that we can stick with it a little while longer too. Don't be the youth worker who abandons your favorite podcast. And you can also like, subscribe, share us on all social media platforms. That would be awesome. So by the time you hear this, the Super Bowl will be over. Mm-hmm. And T Swift will have probably yet another trophy on her shelf. And,
that's right.
And I'll just be shaking my head. I'll just be shaking it off. Anyway.
Dad jokes.
Terrible. All right. Well, thanks for being with us today, Shannon. It's great to see you. See you back in a couple weeks. Bye.
Bye.